Men are moved by two levers only, fear and self-interest. Napoleon Bonaparte, they tell you hard work guarantees success. It's a comforting lie designed to keep you compliant, a pacifier for the masses. The truth is, the world doesn't reward effort alone. It rewards results, and results often come from leveraging hidden advantages, understanding unspoken rules, and sometimes from exploiting the very system that claims to be fair. We're here to expose the cruel symmetry of truth. What you've been told is virtuous is often a path to mediocrity, while what is condemned is often the key to real power. The idea that everyone starts on equal footing is a dangerous fantasy. Some inherit wealth, connections, and a deep understanding of how the game is played. Others are born into environments that actively sabotage their potential. To pretend these differences don't exist is to condemn millions to a life of struggling against a stacked deck. We don't offer empty platitudes about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. We offer the unvarnished reality. Identify your disadvantages, understand the advantages of your opponents, and ruthlessly exploit any edge you can find. Forget the idea of a meritocracy. It's a beautiful ideal, but it's rarely the reality. Performance is judged subjectively. Networks matter more than qualifications. Perceptions shape opportunities. Learn to navigate this complex web of influence, and you'll achieve far more than blindly following the prescribed path. We're not advocating dishonesty, but rather a strategic awareness of the forces at play. See the world as it is, not as you wish it were. The world doesn't care about your feelings. It rewards competence, confidence, and the ability to get things done. Showing vulnerability can be a strength, but only when deployed strategically. In most situations, it's an invitation for others to exploit your weakness. Develop a thick skin. Cultivate inner resilience. Learn to project an image of strength and control even when you're feeling vulnerable. This isn't about being inauthentic. It's about mastering the art of self-preservation in a competitive world. They preach delayed gratification, telling you to sacrifice your present for a future reward. While planning for the future is essential, blindly deferring your happiness is a recipe for regret. Life is finite. Opportunities are fleeting. Learn to balance long-term goals with present-day enjoyment. Don't let the promise of a distant reward blind you to the possibilities that exist right now. This isn't about instant gratification. It's about making conscious choices about how you allocate your time, energy, and resources. The common advice is to be yourself. This is a half-truth at best. Your authentic self, unfiltered and unrefined, may not be equipped to succeed in the modern world. Identify the qualities that are holding you back and consciously cultivate new ones. Learn to adapt your persona to different situations. This isn't about being fake. It's about becoming the best version of yourself. It's about strategically crafting your identity to achieve your goals. Society tells you to avoid conflict, but conflict is often necessary for growth and progress. Avoiding confrontation allows injustice to fester. Standing up for what you believe in, even when it's unpopular, is essential for maintaining your integrity. Learn to engage in conflict constructively. Develop the ability to articulate your position clearly and persuasively. Don't shy away from difficult conversations. This isn't about seeking out unnecessary drama. It's about having the courage to defend your values and pursue your goals. They tell you to follow your passion, but passion alone is not enough. Many people are passionate about things that are not valuable or marketable. Find a skill that you can become exceptionally good at and that the world is willing to pay for. Passion can fuel your dedication, but it should not be the sole driver of your career choices. Focus on developing expertise and creating value. The passion will follow the progress. The narrative is about being nice. Be agreeable. Avoid making enemies. But the truth is, not everyone will like you, and that's okay. Trying to please everyone is a recipe for mediocrity. Focus on earning the respect of those whose opinions matter. Don't waste your time trying to win over those who are inherently negative or envious. Develop the ability to discern genuine criticism from malicious attacks. Cultivate a strong inner circle of allies and mentors. They push for constant learning. Consume information relentlessly, but information without application is useless. Focus on learning skills that you can immediately put into practice. Experiment, iterate, learn from your failures. The most valuable knowledge comes from experience, not from textbooks. Stop passively consuming information and start actively applying it to real-world problems. Turn knowledge into power. The lie is that failure is to be avoided at all costs, but failure is inevitable and often a necessary stepping stone to success. Learn to embrace failure as a learning opportunity. Analyze your mistakes. Identify what went wrong and how you can do better next time. Don't let fear of failure paralyze you. The only real failure is the failure to learn and adapt. Embrace risk. Push yourself outside of your comfort zone. They tell you to be humble. Modesty is a virtue, but in a competitive world, you must also be your own advocate. Learn to articulate your accomplishments clearly and confidently. Don't be afraid to promote your skills and expertise. If you don't advocate for yourself, no one else will. There's a difference between arrogance and justified self-confidence. Cultivate the latter. The script tells you to be grateful for what you have. While gratitude is important, it shouldn't prevent you from striving for more. Don't become complacent with mediocrity. Always seek to improve yourself and your circumstances. Acknowledge your blessings, but don't let them blind you to your potential. Drive for constant growth. They say money can't buy happiness, but poverty guarantees misery. Money is a tool that can provide you with freedom, security, and opportunities. Don't be ashamed of wanting to accumulate wealth. Learn to manage your finances wisely. Invest in yourself and your future. Money is not the ultimate goal, but it is a necessary means to achieving many of your goals. The system wants you docile, compliant, unquestioning. We are here to awaken you to the truth, to expose the lies that hold you back, to empower you to take control of your life and achieve your full potential. This isn't a comfortable path. It requires courage, discipline, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. But the rewards are immense. Join us and discover the cruel symmetry of truth. The truth is, the world doesn't reward weakness. It preys upon it. They tell you everyone deserves a trophy, but the real world only remembers the winners. Prepare yourself for a meritocracy. Develop skills that are valuable and learn to execute under pressure. Sentimentality has no place in this arena. Harsh but necessary. Understand that failure is inevitable. It's not about avoiding failure, but about learning from it and using it as fuel to propel you forward. Each setback is a lesson, and each scar a reminder of your resilience. Embrace the struggle. They preach equality, but the playing field is never level. Some are born with advantages, others with disadvantages. It is up to you to understand the game and strategize accordingly. Don't waste time complaining about the unfairness of it all. Instead, focus on leveraging your strengths and mitigating your weaknesses. Master the art of adaptation. Learn to navigate complex situations and exploit opportunities where others see obstacles. This requires a keen understanding of human nature and the ability to anticipate the moves of your opponents. They tell you to follow your passion, but passion alone doesn't guarantee success. You must combine your passion with discipline, hard work, and a strategic mindset. Don't chase fleeting desires. Instead, identify your core values and align your actions with them. This will give you the inner strength to persevere through challenges and stay focused on your long-term goals. The path to success is often paved with sacrifice and delayed gratification. Be willing to make the necessary choices, even when they are difficult. True passion is cultivated through mastery, not the other way around. They want you to believe in overnight success, that anyone can become rich and famous with minimal effort. The reality is that success requires years of dedication, relentless effort, and a willingness to learn from your mistakes. There are no shortcuts, no magic pills, no guaranteed formulas, only consistent, focused action. Be patient, persistent, and unwavering in your pursuit of excellence. The world rewards those who are willing to put in the work, even when no one is watching. They say ignorance is bliss, but ignorance is a prison. The more you know, the more freedom you have. Seek knowledge relentlessly. Question everything. Challenge assumptions. Don't blindly accept what you are told. Develop your own critical thinking skills and form your own opinions. The truth is often uncomfortable and challenging, but it is essential for personal growth and empowerment. Embrace the uncomfortable questions and seek out the answers, even if they shatter your illusions. They encourage you to be a generalist, a jack of all trades, but the world rewards specialists. Focus on mastering one specific skill or domain. Become the go-to expert in your field. This will give you leverage, influence, and the ability to command premium prices for your services. Don't spread yourself too thin. Concentrate your energy on what you do best and become exceptionally good at it. Depth trumps breadth. Specialization is the key to unlocking your full potential. They tell you to be nice to everyone, but not everyone deserves your kindness. Learn to recognize the wolves in sheep's clothing. Protect yourself from manipulators, energy vampires, and those who seek to exploit your good nature. Set clear boundaries and enforce them ruthlessly. Don't be afraid to say no. Surround yourself with people who uplift and inspire you, and distance yourself from those who drain your energy. Your time and energy are precious resources. Invest them wisely. They push groupthink, conformity, blind obedience, but individuality is your greatest strength. Embrace your uniqueness. Cultivate your own perspective. Don't be afraid to stand out from the crowd. Originality is rare and valuable. The world needs innovators, disruptors, and those who are willing to challenge the status quo. Be yourself unapologetically. Your authenticity is your superpower. They sell you fantasies of safety and security, but the world is inherently uncertain. Embrace risk. Step outside your comfort zone. Challenge yourself to grow and evolve. Don't let fear hold you back from pursuing your dreams. The greatest rewards come from taking calculated risks. Be bold, be courageous, and be willing to fail. Because in the end, it is not the absence of failure that defines us, but our ability to rise above it. They celebrate victimhood, blaming others for your problems, but you are the master of your own destiny. Take responsibility for your choices and your actions. Don't make excuses. Don't play the victim. Empower yourself by taking control of your life and shaping your own future. The only person you can truly rely on is yourself. Consider the story of the ambitious young executive, Mark. He rose through the ranks of a cutthroat corporation by playing the game. Mark understood the unspoken rules, the subtle power dynamics, the art of strategic alliances. He knew how to navigate the treacherous waters of office politics, how to manage his image, and how to influence the decisions of those above him. He wasn't inherently malicious, but he was ruthlessly pragmatic. Mark saw the world as a chessboard, and he was determined to win. He sacrificed personal relationships, ethical considerations, and even his own well-being in pursuit of success. He worked long hours, took on impossible tasks, and always delivered results, no matter the cost. His colleagues admired his ambition, but they also feared his intensity. They knew that he was willing to do whatever it took to get ahead, even if it meant stepping on them in the process. Mark climbed the corporate ladder with relentless determination, leaving a trail of broken promises and shattered dreams in his wake. He justified his actions by telling himself that he was simply playing the game, that everyone else was doing the same thing, and that only the strong survived. He believed that success was the ultimate validation, and that the ends always justified the means. But as he reached the pinnacle of his career, Mark began to question his choices. He had achieved everything he had ever wanted, but he found himself empty and unfulfilled. He realized that he had sacrificed his integrity, his relationships, and his own happiness in pursuit of a hollow victory. He was surrounded by wealth and power, but he was utterly alone. The people he had used and manipulated along the way had either turned against him or simply faded away. He had built his empire on a foundation of sand, and now it was crumbling around him. Mark's story is a cautionary tale about the dark side of ambition, the seductive allure of power, and the corrosive effects of unchecked ego. It illustrates the cruel symmetry of truth, That success achieved through deceit and manipulation is ultimately self-defeating. He achieved all that he set out to, but the price was far too high. It's a high-stakes game where you risk everything. The cost is always yourself. The people who win never seem to see it until it's far too late to change it. The win is meaningless when you have nothing left to celebrate it with. You are left with the ghosts of your misdeeds and the bitter taste of regret. This is the truth behind the stories you hear of powerful men, the ones who retire into isolation. They may have their wealth, but they are deeply unhappy. Their win cost them too much. The trap is laid long before they ever see it. It's woven into the fabric of their desires, their ambitions, their very understanding of what it means to succeed. They chase the glittering prize, blind to the compromises they make, the corners they cut, the people they hurt along the way. They believe the lies they tell themselves, that the ends justify the means, that success is all that matters. The world rewards ruthlessness, they think, so they become ruthless. They mistake ambition for virtue and ego for strength. Each small act of betrayal, each calculated manipulation, seems insignificant in the grand scheme of things, just a necessary step on the path to greatness. But these small acts accumulate. They harden the heart, they erode the soul. The person they become is unrecognizable, a distorted reflection of their former self. They become trapped in a cycle of their own making, compelled to repeat the behaviors that brought them initial success, even as those behaviors begin to destroy everything they hold dear. They isolate themselves, building walls of wealth and power around themselves, cutting themselves off from genuine connection and meaningful relationships. They surround themselves with sycophants and yes-men, people who reinforce their delusions of grandeur, who validate their every decision, no matter how reckless or unethical. The truth becomes a dangerous enemy, something to be avoided at all costs. Reality is distorted, facts are twisted, and narratives are carefully crafted to maintain the illusion of control and invincibility. They forget the value of loyalty, of friendship, of simple human decency. These things are seen as weaknesses, vulnerabilities to be exploited. They become masters of deception, adept at reading people, at manipulating their emotions, at exploiting their weaknesses. They see the world as a game and everyone in it as a pawn to be used and discarded. They revel in their victories, in the power they wield, in the fear they inspire. But beneath the surface, a deep unease begins to grow. The victories become less satisfying, the power feels less secure, the fear turns to resentment. They realize that they are surrounded by enemies, that everyone is waiting for them to falter, to stumble, to show a sign of weakness. They become paranoid, distrustful, constantly looking over their shoulder. The isolation deepens, the walls close in. The trap has sprung. The ambition that once fueled them now consumes them. The ego that once protected them now imprisons them. The success they craved now mocks them. They have achieved everything they ever wanted, but they have lost everything that truly mattered. The pursuit of power has left them powerless. The accumulation of wealth has left them impoverished, and the quest for validation has left them empty. They are left with nothing but the bitter taste of regret, the haunting memories of the lives they have damaged, and the crushing realization that they have sacrificed their own humanity on the altar of ambition. They may have won the game, but they have lost themselves. The price of their victory is their soul, a price far too high to pay. The irony is inescapable. The very qualities that propelled them to the top are the same qualities that ultimately lead to their downfall. Their ruthlessness becomes their undoing, their ambition becomes their obsession, and their ego becomes their prison. They are victims of their own success, trapped by the very system they sought to master. They believed they were playing the game, but the game was playing them. The lure of power is seductive. The promise of success is intoxicating. But the cost of pursuing these things at all costs is far greater than they ever imagined. The world is full of such stories, of men and women who climbed to the top only to find that the view from the summit was bleak and desolate. They are cautionary tales, warnings about the dangers of unchecked ambition, the corrosive effects of ego, and the importance of staying true to oneself. The trap is always there, waiting to ensnare those who are willing to sacrifice everything for the sake of success. It is a trap that can only be avoided by recognizing the true value of things like integrity, empathy, and human connection. These are the things that truly matter, the things that give life meaning and purpose. Without them, success is just an empty shell, a hollow victory that leaves you feeling more lost and alone than ever before. The weak fail because they believe the lies. They accept the false narratives. They embrace the illusion of control, and they ultimately become slaves to their own desires. The truly strong, however, see through the charade. They recognize the trap for what it is, and they refuse to fall for it. They understand that true success is not measured by wealth or power, but by the quality of your relationships, the strength of your character, and the impact you have on the world. They are willing to sacrifice short-term gains for long-term fulfillment, and they understand that true happiness comes from living a life of purpose and meaning. They resist the urge to compromise their values, to cut corners, or to betray their principles. They understand that true strength lies in integrity, that true power lies in compassion, and that true success lies in living a life of authenticity and purpose. They build their lives on a foundation of solid principles, and they are able to weather any storm. The weak are consumed by their ambition. The strong are guided by their purpose. This is the difference between success and fulfillment, between power and meaning, and between a life well lived and a life wasted chasing shadows. The trap claims the unwary, the ones who are willing to sacrifice their souls for a fleeting moment of glory. But for those who can see the truth, who understand the cruel symmetry of the game, there is a different path, a path that leads to lasting fulfillment and genuine happiness. It's the path of integrity, of purpose, and of unwavering commitment to your own values. The Machiavellian approach to navigating this cruel symmetry demands a cold, calculating assessment of human nature, stripped bare of sentimentality. It requires you to understand that most people are driven by base desires, greed, envy, and the relentless pursuit of pleasure. They are easily manipulated through their weaknesses, and their virtues are often just carefully constructed facades. To truly succeed, you must learn to see people for who they are, not who they pretend to be. This doesn't mean becoming a cynic, but rather a pragmatist. Accept that the world is not fair, that good people often suffer, and that bad people often prosper. Once you internalize this reality, you can begin to develop a strategy for navigating it effectively. The first step is to master the art of deception. This doesn't necessarily mean lying outright, but rather learning to control the information you reveal and to present yourself in the most advantageous light. Understand that perception is reality, and that people will judge you based on what they see, not on who you truly are. Cultivate an image of competence, confidence, and unwavering resolve. Project an aura of power, even if you don't feel it within. This will deter potential adversaries and attract allies who are drawn to strength. The second key is to identify and exploit the weaknesses of others. Every person has vulnerabilities, whether it's their ambition, their insecurity, or their fear of failure. Learn to recognize these weaknesses and use them to your advantage. This can involve subtle manipulation, strategic flattery, or even the occasional veiled threat. The goal is not to cause harm, but rather to gain leverage and control the situation. Remember, the Machiavellian approach is not about being malicious, but about being effective. It's about understanding the rules of the game and playing them to win. The third principle is to always be one step ahead. Think strategically, anticipate potential problems, and plan for every contingency. Never allow yourself to be caught off guard, and always have a backup plan in case things don't go as expected. This requires a deep understanding of human psychology, as well as a keen awareness of your surroundings. Pay attention to the subtle cues, the unspoken motivations, and the hidden agendas that drive people's behavior. Learn to read between the lines, and you'll be able to anticipate their moves before they even make them. Finally, the Machiavellian approach requires a relentless focus on your goals. Don't allow yourself to be distracted by trivial matters or sidetracked by emotional attachments. Stay focused on your objectives, and be willing to do whatever it takes to achieve them. This doesn't mean sacrificing your integrity, but it does mean prioritizing your ambitions and being willing to make difficult choices. Understand that success often requires sacrifice, and that the path to power is rarely easy. Be prepared to make unpopular decisions, to alienate people along the way, and to face criticism and opposition. But if you remain true to your goals and unwavering in your resolve, you will ultimately prevail. The Machiavellian approach is not for the faint of heart. It requires a cold, calculating mind, a willingness to manipulate others, and an unwavering commitment to your own success. But for those who are willing to embrace it, it offers a powerful framework for navigating the cruel realities of the world and achieving their ambitions. This approach is not a morality, but a strategy. It is a tool to be used with caution, awareness, and a clear understanding of the potential consequences. The man who wields such power must also understand himself. Throughout history, the rise and fall of empires offers a chilling reflection of these principles. Consider the Roman Empire, a civilization built on ruthless expansion, military dominance, and political maneuvering. Their ascent was fueled by a relentless pursuit of power, a willingness to conquer and subjugate other peoples, and a mastery of propaganda and control. They understood the importance of projecting an image of strength and invincibility, even when facing internal weaknesses and external threats. Their legions were not merely soldiers, but instruments of political will, enforcing Roman law and suppressing dissent with brutal efficiency. The Roman elite, much like modern power brokers, engaged in constant competition for influence and resources, using alliances, betrayals, and even assassination to advance their own agendas. The Senate, ostensibly a body of wise and experienced leaders, was often a battleground for personal ambition and factional rivalries. Yet this very ruthlessness, this unwavering focus on self-preservation and expansion, allowed Rome to dominate the Mediterranean world for centuries. But even the mighty Roman Empire eventually succumbed to the forces of decay, internal corruption, and external pressures. The seeds of its destruction were sown in the very methods that had ensured its initial success. The constant warfare drained its resources, the political infighting weakened its leadership, and the moral decay eroded its social fabric. The empire became bloated, inefficient, and vulnerable to the barbarian hordes that eventually overwhelmed its defenses. The parallels to modern-day power structures are undeniable. Nations, corporations, and even individuals often employ similar tactics to achieve their goals. They build alliances, engage in strategic competition, and use propaganda to shape public opinion. They are willing to exploit weaknesses, manipulate others, and even resort to deception to gain an advantage. The pursuit of wealth, power, and influence remains a constant driving force, shaping the behavior of individuals and institutions alike. The lessons of history are clear. Power is a double-edged sword. It can be used to achieve great things, but it can also corrupt and destroy. The pursuit of power must be tempered by wisdom, restraint, and a sense of responsibility. Those who seek power must be aware of the potential consequences of their actions, and they must be willing to accept the burdens that come with leadership. War, in particular, serves as a stark illustration of the cruel symmetry of truth. It is a realm where deception, violence, and betrayal are commonplace, where the pursuit of victory often justifies any means. Throughout history, military leaders have employed strategies of deception and surprise to gain an advantage over their enemies. They have used misinformation to mislead their opponents, ambushes to inflict heavy casualties, and psychological warfare to demoralize their forces. The famous Trojan horse is a classic example of deception in warfare, where the Greeks concealed their soldiers inside a wooden horse to infiltrate the city of Troy and ultimately conquer it. Similarly, in modern warfare, intelligence gathering and covert operations play a crucial role in shaping the outcome of battles. Spies and informants gather information about enemy positions, strengths, and weaknesses, while special forces units conduct sabotage and assassination missions behind enemy lines. The use of drones and cyber warfare has further blurred the lines between conventional warfare and covert operations, making it increasingly difficult to distinguish between legitimate targets and civilian populations. But war is not just about strategy and tactics. It is also about the human cost of conflict. Soldiers on the front lines face unimaginable horrors, witnessing death and destruction on a daily basis. They are forced to kill and be killed, to endure extreme physical and psychological trauma, and to make impossible choices in life-or-death situations. The experience of war can leave lasting scars on their minds and bodies, leading to post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and other mental health problems. The civilian population also suffers greatly during wartime. They are often caught in the crossfire, losing their homes, their loved ones, and their livelihoods. They may be subjected to violence, oppression, and even genocide. The refugee crisis that often accompanies war can create massive humanitarian challenges, as millions of people are forced to flee their homes in search of safety and security. The aftermath of war is often just as devastating as the conflict itself. Rebuilding shattered infrastructure, restoring social order, and healing the wounds of trauma can take years, if not decades. The economic costs of war can be staggering, diverting resources away from education, healthcare, and other essential services. The political and social divisions that often emerge during wartime can linger long after the fighting has stopped, making it difficult to achieve reconciliation and lasting peace. War is a reflection of the darkest aspects of human nature. It is a reminder of our capacity for violence, our willingness to sacrifice others for our own goals, and our tendency to dehumanize our enemies. But it is also a reminder of our capacity for courage, resilience, and compassion. Soldiers often display extraordinary bravery in the face of danger, risking their lives to protect their comrades and defend their country. Civilians often show remarkable resilience, enduring hardship and loss with dignity and grace. And humanitarian organizations often provide essential aid to those affected by war, offering food, shelter, and medical care to those in need. The truth of war is complex and multifaceted. It is not simply a matter of good versus evil or right versus wrong. It is a realm of gray areas, of moral dilemmas, and of unintended consequences. To understand war, we must be willing to confront its uncomfortable truths, to acknowledge its complexities, and to learn from its lessons. We must strive to prevent future conflicts, to promote peace and understanding, and to create a world where war is no longer seen as an inevitable part of the human condition. This historical symmetry, seen in the rise and fall of empires and the brutal realities of war, underscores a critical point. The methods employed to gain power often contain the seeds of their own destruction. The very ruthlessness that propels individuals and organizations to the top can ultimately lead to their downfall. This is not a moral judgment, but an observation of cause and effect. It is a recognition that the world is a complex and interconnected system, where every action has a reaction, and where the pursuit of short-term gains can often lead to long-term losses. The psychology behind this self-destructive cycle is deeply rooted in the human psyche. The drive for power, dominance, and control can become all-consuming, blinding individuals to the potential consequences of their actions. This is often fueled by a deep-seated insecurity, a fear of vulnerability, and a need to prove oneself. The constant pursuit of more, the relentless ambition, can create a state of perpetual dissatisfaction, where no amount of success is ever enough. This can lead to a dangerous disregard for ethical considerations, a willingness to exploit and manipulate others, and a gradual erosion of empathy and compassion. The individual becomes increasingly isolated, surrounded by sycophants and yes-men, further reinforcing their distorted perception of reality. They lose the ability to accurately assess risks, to recognize their own limitations, and to learn from their mistakes. The very qualities that initially contributed to their success, their ambition, their drive, their ruthlessness, ultimately become their undoing. This phenomenon is often observed in individuals who rise to positions of power in cutthroat industries, such as finance or politics. The relentless competition, the constant pressure to perform, and the ever-present threat of failure can create a toxic environment that fosters a win-at-all-costs mentality. Individuals who are naturally inclined towards aggression and dominance are often rewarded for their behavior, further reinforcing their belief that ruthlessness is the key to success. They may engage in unethical or even illegal activities, justifying their actions by claiming that they are simply doing what is necessary to survive and thrive in a dog-eat-dog world. However, this type of behavior is ultimately unsustainable. It creates enemies, breeds resentment, and inevitably leads to exposure and downfall. The individual who climbs to the top by stepping on others will eventually find themselves alone and vulnerable, with no one to support them when the inevitable crisis strikes. The same principle applies to organizations and even nations. A company that prioritizes short-term profits over long-term sustainability, that exploits its workers and pollutes the environment, may initially achieve remarkable success. However, this success is built on a foundation of instability and will eventually crumble. Customers will become disillusioned, employees will become resentful, and the environment will suffer irreparable damage. The company's reputation will be tarnished, its brand will be devalued, and its long-term prospects will be severely diminished. Similarly, a nation that pursues aggressive foreign policies, that disregards international law, and that oppresses its own people may initially achieve military or economic dominance. However, this dominance will be short-lived. Other nations will unite against it. Its economy will become unsustainable, and its people will eventually rise up in rebellion. The nation's power will erode, its influence will wane, and it will eventually collapse under the weight of its own internal contradictions. The key to breaking this self-destructive cycle lies in cultivating a different set of values and priorities. Instead of focusing solely on the pursuit of power and dominance, individuals and organizations should strive to build relationships based on trust, respect, and mutual benefit. They should prioritize long-term sustainability over short-term gains, ethical behavior over ruthless competition, and empathy and compassion over aggression and dominance. This requires a fundamental shift in mindset, a willingness to challenge conventional wisdom, and a commitment to creating a more just and equitable world. It is not easy, but it is essential if we are to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past and to build a future where power is used for the benefit of all, not just for the enrichment of a few. This is not about weakness, but about a different kind of strength, the strength of character, the strength of principle, and the strength of community. It is about recognizing that true success is not measured by wealth or power, but by the positive impact we have on the world around us. The implications for personal strategy are profound. Understanding this cruel symmetry means recognizing that shortcuts and unethical tactics, while potentially offering a temporary advantage, ultimately undermine long-term success. Building a sustainable foundation for achievement requires a commitment to integrity, consistency, and the cultivation of genuine relationships. It necessitates a focus on continuous self-improvement, a willingness to learn from mistakes, and the development of resilience in the face of adversity. It means understanding that true power comes not from dominating others, but from empowering them, from building a network of loyal allies, and from creating a positive and lasting impact on the world. The individual who understands this principle will not be seduced by the allure of quick wins or unethical shortcuts. They will instead focus on building a solid foundation for long-term success, knowing that integrity, hard work, and genuine relationships are the keys to unlocking their full potential. This approach may not be the fastest or the easiest, but it is the only one that leads to lasting and meaningful achievement. Furthermore, recognizing this dynamic allows for a more nuanced understanding of the behavior of others. When confronted with individuals or organizations that engage in ruthless or unethical tactics, it is important to understand the underlying psychology that drives their actions. This understanding allows for a more strategic response, one that is not based on emotional reactions or moral outrage, but on a clear assessment of the risks and opportunities involved. It may be necessary to confront such behavior directly, but it is also important to be aware of the potential consequences of such confrontation. In some cases, it may be more effective to simply disengage, to avoid becoming entangled in the toxic dynamics that characterize such situations. In other cases, it may be possible to use the very tactics employed by such individuals or organizations against them, turning their own weapons against them in a way that ultimately benefits the greater good. The key is to remain detached, to avoid becoming emotionally invested in the outcome, and to always be aware of the potential for unintended consequences. This requires a high degree of emotional intelligence, a deep understanding of human psychology, and a willingness to make difficult and sometimes unpopular decisions. In conclusion, the cruel symmetry of truth is a fundamental principle that governs human behavior and the dynamics of power. It is a recognition that the methods employed to gain power often contain the seeds of their own destruction, and that true success requires a commitment to integrity, sustainability, and the cultivation of genuine relationships. Understanding this principle is essential for anyone who seeks to achieve lasting and meaningful success, whether in their personal or professional lives. It requires a willingness to challenge conventional wisdom, to embrace complexity, and to make difficult choices. It is not a comfortable truth, but it is a necessary one, and one that can ultimately lead to a more just and equitable world. The pursuit of power without principle is a dangerous game, one that inevitably leads to downfall. The pursuit of power with principle